Hi everyone, my name's Stephanie and I teach people how to reduce, take a break and stop drinking, amongst many other things, but I'm not going to waffle on about that. This little video is about habit. A huge part of the work that we do in terms of reducing, taking a break and stopping drinking is about habits. And that shows up in many different forms. The key thing to remember with habit is about it can be easier to create new habits than it is to focus on changing a habit that we don't want. Yeah, so it can be easier to put new stuff in than take old stuff out. And this stuff takes time, and a lot of it is about repetition. And that's why in the accountability group, we focus on one thing at a time, and we bed that in, and then we move on to the next thing, okay? It's slightly a little bit more complicated for some people around anxiety and habit. There's the desire component, and sometimes we can get hooked into a loop that feels like we can't get out of it, but we absolutely can. And there are lots and lots of different ways to get out of that loop. And when you think about habit, I want you to think about a couple of things. So if you get a new job and you have to get up early in the morning, you set your alarm, you're not used to getting up. So maybe for the first week or couple of weeks, that just feels horrible. But then after maybe week 3, you're waking up early anyway, before the alarm. Yeah, repetition, consistency. There's an element of reward in there as well. So usually with a new job, there'll be a reward. You're motivated to do the new job. Maybe it's about promotion or challenge or learning or financial benefits. Yeah. So it's the simple thing is about getting up early, but actually there's some values and motivation stuff in there as well. You know, think about when you learn how to drive. When we start learning how to drive, it can feel really difficult and clunky. But if you have a driving lesson every week, very slowly over time, you build this stuff up. You know, mirror, signal, maneuver, clutch, accelerator, brake, gears, there's so much going on. And learning your highway code as well. But you do learn it because you do it a little bit at a time over a period of time with expert support. Yeah, this is how it works. And obviously there's a reward component to learning how to drive as well. So I really want you to remember that. I also want you to remember that you are a human being and you are a learning machine. There are many things that you have learnt, that you are learning, and that you will learn in the future. I'm not saying that it's always easy. It isn't. But if you really want to learn something, you can learn it. You know, musical instruments, dances, learning how to use a computer, whatever it is in a new job. I just want you to take a moment to think about all the things that you have learnt over the last 10 or so years, yeah, and really get your head in the mindset of you are a learning machine, and a lot of habit is about repetition, with the desire and the reward component in there as well. Okay, so remember what I said, it can be easier to create a new habit than to take an old one away. So if you watch any of my stuff, you will know that a lot of what I talk about is doing things differently, putting things in place. That is simplifying it a lot. The key bit to remember is that when we're making changes, it can feel uncomfortable sometimes. We can sometimes be tempted to go back to what is the familiar, even though it's not good for us. So think in terms of, you know, if we are in a relationship that isn't healthy, maybe it's abusive, or there's something not very good about it, you know, and then we know it's the best thing for us to leave, and we do leave, but we go back. Yeah, it's that comfortable slipper. We don't always make the best decisions for ourselves. There is definitely something about familiarity and comfort, yeah, whether we realize it or not. It's definitely something that's going on. So part of the behavior change process is understanding and accepting that when we make changes, sometimes that might feel uncomfortable, different, new, clunky, hard, but the more we do it, the easier it will get. And sometimes we may just revert back to our comfortable slipper, to what is familiar to us. But the key bit there is, particularly in the alcohol space, is that you get back on track as soon as possible. Progress, not perfection. You are not going back to day one. You already have all that learning with you. So imagine you do 3 months and you massively reduce and you have alcohol-free days and you're reaping all the benefits of that. And then you go to a wedding and you drink too much and it's horrendous. It's not like it's all over. It's not, you've had the slice of cake, you're going to eat the whole cake. We're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. One of my experts talks about, if you have a bunch of flowers and one of the flowers dies, you don't throw the whole bunch of flowers away, okay? So one of the key parts of this is getting back on track, recognizing what we can learn from that and using it and not giving ourselves a hard time. So relapse, slip, blip. Remember, sometimes that's about habit and going back to what is familiar. Just don't make it permanent. Get back on track. Course correct, okay? So part of this is about understanding what's happening with your drinking, which is a lot of what we do in the accountability group, and hence why I keep it at a very affordable price, because for some people this stuff takes time, and that's okay. Learning about ourselves, learning about our habits, it can take time. So once we understand that and some of the habits around it, and that we have created it, that we are in charge, that we are 100% responsible for our life, that we have choice power, which is what one of my experts says, then we can also change that. We've created it, so we can change that. So understanding how this has happened, a lot of this is about, like we talked about in the video, why am I drinking? What's wrong with me? Alcohol is highly addictive, legal, readily available, socially acceptable, aggressively marketed to us. We are human beings. We love to seek out pleasure and alleviate pain, whatever that may be. Yeah. So getting clear on why you drink, what are your habits that have created that over time? What are your habits that are happening? What do you need to change? One thing at a time. Using action. I'm a massive fan of action. You don't necessarily have to believe that you can do this. It's about taking the action, repeatedly taking those actions until you figure out what works. Yeah, like we talked about with triggers, people, places, feelings, times of day. And remember that when things don't work, this is also part of the learning, okay? And a key bit to remember is that you are in charge. Now, some of this as well is, like we talked about, desire, reward, okay? So sometimes we have these like sticky areas. So when I talk about alcohol, I talk about it in terms of short-term gain, long-term pain. And sometimes when we make changes, that's short-term pain, long-term gain. So sometimes where the support comes in and can be really beneficial is that maybe you're struggling a bit, it's not going very well, but because I've worked with thousands and thousands of people, I understand the process. You're surrounded by lots of other women at different stages of their journey that understand the process, and we can be like, yep, that's normal, keep going, you're going to come out the other side. And then when you start to reap the benefits, that's when you're getting into where you flipped the coin. So where you think alcohol is giving you something and you start to make changes, and then you recognize that when you reduce, you build up alcohol-free days, maybe have some alcohol-free time, you start reaping the rewards of that, and then you get really into those benefits and you start to desire those. Recently, we talked about this in one of my groups, about the benefits of being alcohol-free, and quite a lot of the women talked about the clarity and knowing your own mind, and that being, just almost like an addiction in itself, and not wanting to have a drink because they don't want to throw that away. Okay, so something I want you to have a think about is, what new habits could you create that would support you to make changes to your drinking? Thank you.